In this instalment of Tech Corner, we're looking at solutions to flying scenery on stage without a tower. And offering his experience and solutions to this problem faced by many societies with limited facilities is Ian Robinson from Hillingdon and Uxbridge Stage Crew.
We play at a variety of different venues, from a large 550-seater theatre in the locality, as well as some halls and smaller venues at theatres. Some venues have got wipe tracks. One particular problem with wipe tracks is they can be easily damaged, so before you hang the curtain it's essential that you make sure that the bobbins will run freely. Also make sure that the lead bobbin is going to be at the front of the curtain when you pull it out, and consider using the lead rope to bring it out as well. This is important because if the curtain gets caught in any way, you've got the facility to walk backwards and then walk forwards again to make sure you can free it from whatever's obstructing. Other venues have got just plain barrels, and we have to make a decision prior to getting into the venue as to whether we're going to drop and roll, or whether we're going to hire in a wipe track or move any equipment they may have, such as wipe tracks or tab tracks, into the right position so that we can wipe the curtains. It's also important to tie the cloth off, because there's nothing worse than walking across the stage with the curtain thinking it's going to stop and it doesn't, because the stop's not been put in place. That can be very embarrassing. If you have what I would call a cloth intensive show, something like My Fair Lady, where you could have 8-9 cloths, always consider putting 2 cloths on a wipe track to get the most out of the hire, if you've had to hire it, or indeed space. So again, it's important to know which cloth is on which end of which bar, because again, unfortunately, it does happen that you occasionally bring in the wrong cloth.
But what about those producing local theatre on an even smaller scale? Performing in a village hall or community centre without any overhead space at all? If your group are looking for ways to change scene quickly, Ian has an inexpensive DIY solution.
Obviously, for some venues, space is an issue, and the facilities that are available are an issue. Smaller halls, church halls and the like, and even schools. One option potentially, where there are no hemp lines or flying lines or winch lines, would be to use the following method. And this is along similar lines to something I've done myself, so I do talk with a little bit of experience. Using this blind as an example, if you had your cloth, which is actually handmade, and acquire something along the lines of a 4-inch steel, or aluminium pole. That's mainly for rigidity, as opposed to using the PVC, which unfortunately can bend depending on the length of the cloth you have to hang. You take your cloth and you attach it to the scaff pole with gaffer tape. Make sure it's nice and secure along the full width, and by strips as opposed to along the full length. I'd recommend that you consider putting a conduit pole through the bottom of the cloth, and then that will be able to stretch it, and so it would look good when it's hung. The next stage would be to attach some pulleys at the end of this bar from the reverse side down and up. But it has to be, unlike this demonstration here where these are part way in, they need to be further towards the end of each bar. Therefore, they're not visible to the audience, so they're actually seen off stage, which could be behind number 1s or 2s, or masking flats, or indeed black legs. This method makes it nice and easy because all the weight is actually at ground level, where you're actually assembling all of this on the day of the get-in. And then using a set of ladders, you can rig the pulleys up into the grid at the appropriate points above the rope, or vice versa, depending on which way you choose to rig it. So you then run the rope down to ground level, where you've got an operator that will then hoist it up. At the appropriate time, when you finish with the cloth for the scene, during the scene change, you can then just pull it up and it stays in the grid. Obviously, at the planning stage, you want to make sure you've got sufficient cleats available at the venue to be able to tie it off safely. This is extremely cheap and easy to obtain, especially from local DIY stores. I would, however, recommend aluminium bar to give it its strength rather than plastic. But again, it's nice and cheap, simple and easy to install. One thing you may want to consider, which I use on a regular basis, are actually D-shackles. Quite large ones, maybe that sort of size. Link them together off the bar, act just as well as a pulley, but it just saves you going out and buying expensive pulleys. And if you've got them in your kit, why not use them?